Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Liz. I'm a program manager here at the Foundation. Tonight, we're celebrating excellence in casting with some of the 2020 Artios Awards nominees. To get us started, will everyone please go down the line and introduce themselves along with the project they were nominated for?
I'll start. Is this working? Hello. I am Ania O'Hare. I was nominated for Shira, Princesses of Power.
I'm Josh Einsohn. I was nominated for This Is Us.
Kerry, Barden, nominated for Clemency.
Matthew Lessall for a film called Skin in the Game.
Kevin Reher for Toy Story 4.
Susan Shopmaker, Random Acts of Flyness, and I'm having a brief moment of not remembering the
Low Tide.
I'm kind of sick, so my apologies.
Susan, we're also celebrating your nomination for Low Tide.
Thank you, Low Tide. Yeah, bring it on. Yeah. Low Tide.
Will you all go and tell us a little bit about how you got into casting?
I'll go first. I used to be an auditor. Yeah, you too? Really? Kevin. I knew we were kindred spirits. So I actually used to be an auditor for PricewaterhouseCoopers. Found myself not vibing with the accountants totally, and that I just like to have a little bit more fun and humor in my day. Not that they don't. They know how to enjoy lives, so it's good. But I missed kind of more of the creative piece. I had a lot of that during school, so I actually found my way over to Los Angeles from Boston and actually found a wonderful unpaid internship at a wonderful company that I'm very grateful to be a part of, UDK, and started off there and really kind of grew from there and found a wonderful career from that. So that's that.
I was a drama major at Washington University in St. Louis, but figured out very quickly I didn't like the actual acting thing. And then I took a directing class and went, telling actors what to do. Yes. And came out here and ended up in production for many, many years. But one of them was the movie Contact, and I got to know Victoria Burrows and Scott Boland, and they always were having a great time. And we sort of talked about the process, and a few years later when I decided to move from production into casting, they needed an unpaid intern. So I started all over again with them and went from there. Oh, and then my first TV show was The West Wing, working for Laura Schiff, and that really sort of solidified my love for casting episodic television. And it went from there.
Very good. I majored in theater at the University of Georgia. I moved here instead of New York, which was my original plan, and found out there's not a lot of theater out here. And like many actors, started tending bar and was offered, like you guys, an unpaid internship for 6 weeks at a company that the first day of casting that I was on, I realized that that's exactly what I had trained for. And so that was 30 years ago, and I haven't stopped working since then, and I still love it every day. We had auditions for 2 different projects today, and it was just delightful. So I found the right path for the studies that I had done for 4 years at the university. So it was great. It was a gift, and I've been super fortunate to work with incredible producers, directors, actors. It's been a really great journey for me. So that's mine.
After I went to college, I was born in London, so I had a British passport, and I said bye, America, and I went to Lambda for a year. They had a program, like a 1-year classical acting course, and I did that for a year, and I was an actor for 6 years there, and then a friend of mine who lived across the street was a casting director named Jeremy Zimmerman, and another friend of mine was his assistant and said he needs another assistant, and I was bartending and waiting tables and doing all the normal actor things that you did before Uber and Lyft. And and so I worked for him, and my first, same thing, like the first day it was like an internship because you never knew when you were getting paid. But, and I love Jeremy, yeah, I love Jeremy. But the first day that I always tell this story, but the first day I was there, I ended up in the dumpster because back then we saved every paper that we had, because the computers weren't that, we had a lot of paper. And Jeremy was like, "Where was that piece of paper?" And I said, "I think I threw it out at 3 o'clock," and had no idea what I was doing. And I was in the dumpster at 6 p.m. And I was like, "I love this. This is great. This is my calling." And that's how it started. And I worked for various casting directors. I did a lot of street casting and real people casting in London, and lots of music videos and commercials. And then I decided to move to LA in 2001 and work. My first job was for Aisha Kohli on 25th Hour.
How did I get so far on so little? I started as a production accountant on Gumby, The New Adventures. Yeah, I know. Then Nightmare Before Christmas, and then Toy Story. Then I ended up being the co-producer of A Bug's Life, and then a development producer, and fell into casting that way because they needed some help, and so Nemo was my first casting credit.
I kind of fell into it. I think I hadn't planned to do anything. So I met a bunch of people. It's a hard question to answer, but I guess I ended up doing similar to Matthew. I did some rock and roll stuff, and then it just sort of segued.
Well, whether you started as an auditor or took some other journey into casting, we're happy that you are here. How did you all get involved with the projects that you're nominated for?
I can absolutely answer. I have an answer for Random Acts of Flyness. I went to the very first first screening at the Sundance Film Festival, and there was a guy there named Terrence Nance who was showing his first sort of hybrid feature narrative / doc. And I knew within 30 minutes, that's my guy. And I stalked him. And so got to do the show.
That's a great answer.
I mean, we have done not anything substantial after that, but I worked for him for things that never quite got off the ground, and this one did. So that's my answer.
Toy Story was up, and we always have like 2 or 3 movies that we're casting at the same time. So, and thanks to Arts and Cohen and Bonnie Arnold, who got the original Toy Story people, we just added to their brilliance.
The producer called me. That's how that happened. So I'm sure I get a lot. I mean, a lot of the work I do is through referral. It's through referral. So it was exciting when he called.
Similar, Bronwyn Cornelius, who I had not worked with before, called me and asked our availability, and then sent the script of Clemency, and I loved it. And then Paul Schnee, my business partner, and I watched the director's first film and thought, okay, this is a good director, this is a really wonderful script, and so we decided to sign on for it. Because most of our work is, like you said, referrals or people that we've worked with before, whether it's producers or directors. So so it was nice to start out with a new director and a new producer. So.
I had been on my own for a few years as an independent casting director and was starting to realize I really needed to partner with somebody. And while I was doing my one pilot, which I knew was not going to go, I was working next to Tiffany Little Canfield, who was opening the LA office for Telsey & Co., and we had known each other for a long time. And I got an email, and I was thinking, I wonder if they need anybody. And before I'd even verbalized that, I got an email saying, hey, what are you up to? So, manifesting. And one of the shows, I got to admit, when I first found out I was working on a family drama, I was like, whoa. Like, who's going to have cancer this week? And then the pilot wasn't ready to watch yet, so I just read the script and went, oh, this is going to be a very special project. So I got to start on episode 2, and I've been on the show ever since.
Well, in animation, it works a little bit different than on camera. So the studios have in-house people. So I am Dreamworks, Animation Television's in-house person. So the way I got my job is someone walked in my office and said, "We have a new project. We need you to cast this now." And I was like, "Okay, got it." And then understood. No, but it was wonderful. I then I think a lot of us know Shira. I then watched the first episode and then realized quickly to shut it down because I was going to kind of do a whole new thing, which is what we did with it. So it was really special.
You've all been singled out for your excellence in casting. How do you find that perfect fit for each role?
I'm going to speak to animation, and Kevin, you'll speak to your version. But for me, I worked on camera for a very long time, so I had the visual and the voice always in front of me. So for me, it has to do with knowing the character not only on the page written, but also we have artists who have come up with these visuals in TV. They come up with them usually before I'm casting them. So between having that in front of me and then reading a script, which for me, anytime I read a script, I usually have an idea of the personality. I kind of come up with something in my head, and then it's just essentially a feeling. When you hear it, it's just spot on. It's perfect. Someone's doing something unexpected that is kind of in the vein of what I was looking for, but they've just upped it for me. So.
It's for me. It tends to be a lot of when you've got a great relationship with the producers and creatively, you know each other's taste really well. It's hard when you're working with a team or for a studio or network where everybody isn't on the same page. Incredibly lucky to be on a show where everybody is marching the same direction. And Tiffany and Bernie put together the original main cast, and as we've added to it, they're just the times where like I read the script and I kind of have an image in my head and a voice, and I tend to start in a fictional place. I tend not to start with a real human prototype, and then finding the person that slides into it from there. We've had some really challenging roles on the show and been very lucky finding the right person sometimes, and it's exciting. There are times where I just see it and go, "Oh my God, that's it. Please, everybody else be on the same page as me." And you just really hope. And when everybody lines up, which is tricky, it's just so exciting to see that happen.
Yeah, it is exciting to put together a cast that feels like it's organic to the story, and you don't see the personality of the public actor. You see the character that's coming together, and the best projects are a true collaboration, which Clemency was. The director, the producer, and our casting team were all excited about it and all on the same page. Starting with Alfred, and then building the cast around her and making that, feel like, these people were in that world that we were creating. And, there's not one actor that can do one role. There's many actors that could fill in that, and putting it together is great. And then putting it together where it feels seamless is also wonderful, and a wonderful accomplishment once you see it. But the audition process is fascinating because you learn so much about the characters from everything the actors are bringing in, and most of the directors I work with steal from the actors. It's like, oh, I like what they did, even if they don't get the part. I'm giving it to the actor that we cast. So it's a really fascinating process for the directors to flesh out the characters, because as on the page, it's like lines, and then people come in and bring their life to it. And it just creates a life for the entire show, and it's the audition process is incredible for everybody that's involved in the project. So.
Can you just ask the question again? I didn't.
Yeah, just how do you find the right actor,
okay,
the
right.
perfect fit?
I think. Well, specifically for my film's in a new category this year called micro budget film. So it's a very low budget film, and I think there's something also that when you tackle material like that, you have a lot of obstacles in your way as far as casting, and you have. But the technical, like how you find somebody, I think you know the script better. You try and know the script as well as anybody else on production. Like you, and I think because you're the casting director, you actually really have to kind of, aside from the writer and maybe the director sometimes, you have to actually work through the characters as much as possible, and so that when the right person comes in, you really know it's the right person. I don't know if that sounds weird. So that's like that side of it, but then there's the business side of it, and that's super challenging because there's the director's expectations, the producer's expectations of like what kind of level actor that they're always going for, and then when those dreams die, being like, but you've got this person, and isn't she amazing? And throwing, and seeing the director light up in the room, you go, okay, my job is cool, because you are ultimately managing disappointment and then bringing hope within 5 minutes. So it's, and potentially losing your job sometimes, because you're the person in charge of making the dream come true. And so in a way, right? I feel like that's, so when you know that it's the right person, I'm very thankful to that actor for being the right person, but you're calling in people that you think can do it based on their previous work history, they're real. Sometimes I don't, honestly, sometimes you don't always know every actor that is being pitched to you. I mean, there are people who know everybody. I don't know everybody. So you do have to dig quite deep, especially on certain projects where there are lots of limitations that aren't normally there for maybe a bigger budget project.
Our process is like bamboo shoots under the fingernails. It takes forever. We do screenings every 12 to 16 weeks of storyboarded versions of the movie. Characters come, characters go, so you can't cast too early, yet they have to have the actor and the dialogue before they can animate. So you surf this, and there's nothing worse than calling somebody and saying your character was eliminated. We make lists, we take ideas from people, then we pull selects from movies, and we put them to the character's image and have them talk back and forth, sort of nonsensical theater, so you get a sense of what it would sound like. We look for textured voices, we look for voices that cut through, pretty much. We don't care what you look like, we don't care how great your body is, we don't care about any of that, just the quality of the voice and cutting through. That's us.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And it's 4 or 5 years in the making.
I actually don't have much to add. It's a fairly organic thing in our office, and often because we do low budget indies, we are seeing 200 people for one role, and in some cases 300 and 400 people for one role, and we actually see them. So it does become kind of organic after a while. It's just you get a feeling. I don't know how to say it any other way. I also live in New York City, and so we have a lot of theater actors, and we know a lot of them because we all go to theater. So you also have a special thing that, you kind of, in many cases, we've seen actors who other people might not know give performances that have true arcs. Does that make sense? So when they come in for something, you have a sense of what they can do already. And sometimes people give bad auditions, and that's what I mean by organic. You have to sort of get in there, into the weeds. So.
Well, to speak to that too, I think all of us advocate for the actors, and because we know their work and know them from not just the 5-minute audition they do, so we can speak to the producers and directors about what we know about these actors and help them see what we've seen over the years.
Matt and Susan, you're both nominated in the micro budget category. Matt, I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm glad that they are now showcasing projects done in all different sizes of projects. What is the difference casting a project on a smaller budget like that as opposed to projects you've done in the past?
Susan and I have worked a lot together on projects. So, what's the difference? I mean, the difference is budget. I mean, like money does buy a lot. It affords a lot of space, I would say. So like space to sometimes on such a low budget, if you're shooting within like we made offers and we started 2 weeks after those offers were going out. So we didn't have a lot of time, so you have to work super fast, and on a bigger budget film, you just have a little bit more breath to kind of let the piece marinate a little bit with talent or with the representation, and in this situation, it's more like, in a weird way, it's more like television. Like you have to just know what you're doing and figure out, like, because they have to be on set so quickly. The money buys a lot. Money buys studio space. Money buys audition time, being able to meet the actors. Doing less self tapes, more in person. Like there's, an assistant. Yeah, that's always a good thing. I did have an assistant on this, but I was working on a couple of other things at the same time. So I was lucky in that way. But oftentimes I don't have an assistant.
I would say it's, in some cases, it's experience. Oftentimes, these super low budget ones also bring their own problems because the people making the movie have a lot less experience, and so you have to
Manage the expectations.
Right.
Yeah. Because you are working with a lot of first-time filmmakers, and so the dream, and like we all know this, like the dream.
I like to kill dreams.
Right. So it's hard because you have to stay. You're doing it because you like the material. So you want your name up on the screen saying casting by Matt Lessall. Like you want that to happen, but you also have to be. So you're on their side, But sometimes it feels like you're always delivering the constant wave of no, and it's really, it can get anybody down because
Also, to add to that, I mean, if we're going to be honest,
Yeah.
Okay, so some first-time directors, in some instances, don't know what they want. So you have to sit in auditions, and you're like, okay, we have it. We're done. And the director or producers don't agree, but the way in which they disagree, I think, is because sometimes of lack of experience, if that.
I think that's a very important thing to remember for an actor,
Yeah.
because
Oh my God,
of
yeah.
that, it tends to lengthen the process as well. And I don't know, for me, I've worked on camera, animation, commercials, everything. We tend to go back to where we started, but we had to go through the process to get there. So I think there is an added anxiety for actors because they're like, I went in 2 weeks ago, I've heard nothing. And then I've heard stories of like 3 months later, they called me and I booked it. But
Yeah, and I'd also like to add, like, all the major agencies don't care about your project at all in any way whatsoever. Thank you very much. So it's up to you, not even the major, like, pretty much, like, because this is LA, so the money drives their business. So it's up to the casting director to make this important to the actor, and then somehow convince the agent and manager that this is a worthwhile project for them to have that conversation with their client on, and it's very, very challenging. Yeah.
On a micro budget film where you have so little time to get things done, you're casting today, they have to be on set tomorrow. How do you get that performance out of an actor? When they walk in the room, you see they have the essence, they can be there. How do you coach them to do you have the time to do that at all?
We're a little weird. Our auditions are no less than 20 minutes per person. And if any of you have seen anything that we've cast, we cast a lot of young people. We're kind of known for finding and discovering people. And so we have a real process in the room. And, for instance, if sometimes because the nerves come in the room, and so the one thing that I always do is, okay, so let's talk about what's happening. Like, why did you just say that? And they look at me like I've like they have no clue. And so we work through that. And it's almost like teaching, but we get what we need. So that's how it happens, and it takes me a long time. So to answer your question, we cast every day until we get it.
Yeah, I mean, specifically for Skin in the Game, we did, everybody who's in the film auditioned, because I re-looked through all the tapes and just wanted to make sure. And because we did it a while ago, actually, and it took a while for it to come out. But so they auditioned 2 weeks before the start. It's really up to the like you just have to go. You just have to trust that the actor is gonna loves it and wants to discover more about the character. It's hard to get into their process about character development when the initial audition is good enough for the director to be like, I love that person, and you're like, okay, thank God, you know. And then you're piecing, and then once you have your main characters in there, you kind of know their taste level, like what the director's looking for, and you kind of create the world around it based on who you've cast. Like, you want everybody to be in the same movie, is what I call it, you know?
It's like a painting.
Yeah.
I think it's worth remembering for actors that often it's a little bit, I think, of what Susan was talking about, the discovery process, often for even experienced producers and directors, comes through the audition process. I worked on a project last year where the second session someone walked in and I'm like, we're done. There it is.
Sure you are.
Did not get the part for another 2.5 months, 2 tests, coaching. I mean, it was an extended process. But the same person I said 2.5 months ago was going to get the part, got the part. But they had to, like, the people who were creating the show had to find their way to what the part was, which is part of our process. And it's frustrating sometimes when I'm like, I know we've got it, just say yes. But I also know that by time he got the part, they were in love with him. So it was hard for everybody, but now it worked out beautifully. And then, yes, you build the show around that person and want to make sure everybody's in the same project together. So it is often frustrating, but it does tend to pay off creatively if you have the time to let them discover it that way.
And I think to speak to the inexperience of first-time directors or novice producers is they are hoping to see a full-fledged performance when an actor walks in the room, and that's not what an audition is. You know, it's like, you know, working on the character, and so you have to I have to be really patient when I'm doing micro budget films, because they don't understand why Matt Damon's not coming in for $100 a day movie, you know, because that's what that SAG contract is for micro budgets. It's $100 a day, you know.
125.
I thought animation
125.
was cheap.
Sorry, it just went up. So it's a long and difficult process sometimes, and you know the expectations, like everybody's saying, are high. And the experience level for these people is not. So it's guiding. It's kind of guiding the directors and producers as well as, you know, working with the actors.
Can you articulate what that gut feeling is when you see a guy and you say, yes, that's the person? And then how do you help the producers and directors see that?
Beat them over the head with it until they agree with you.
We're pretty much a director-driven studio, so we can pitch all we want. But if the director, and hopefully these directors actually watch TV or see movies. I had a couple that it's like they don't know anybody, and it really does have to be just the voice for us.
Which I never understand, like, how you become a director and you don't know actors. Like, that should be your passion. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it happens a lot. And it's, or even knowing what acting is.
I mean, with Clemency, it was great because the director and I hit it off immediately. And so we were on, you know, the train left the station and we were like having a blast. And she was loving who we brought in, and we would talk about the actors and what they brought to it. And a lot of the actors in it are people I've worked with for 20, 30 years, like Michael O'Neill and Alfred and Wendell Pierce I've worked with several times. So it's one of those things where, you know, I knew a lot of the agents and actors would respond to this project because it was such a special script, and you know, we just hit it off. That collaboration, that kind of process, you know, is exciting to me. And then when I'm working with directors over and over again, it's like we already know the kinds of actors we like, so it's easier to say, oh, you're going to love this actor, and usually, 9 times out of 10 they do. So.
Kerry, you mentioned Alfred. I'm curious, what was the process like finding her? You said you knew her, but was there an audition process involved?
No, Alfred did not audition. We sent the script to her team, and they sent it to her, and with an offer, and but we went over a whole list of ideas for the lead role, and she thankfully responded to it, and she's brilliant in the movie, and it's just one of those. Sometimes we get offers out and people pass, but this was fortunate because it was such a strong script and such a strong character, and we got an immediate yes, which is always fun.
Yeah.
We didn't have to wait like 6 weeks and then 6 weeks and then 6 weeks for 3 actors to pass.
You had mentioned that you started with her and then you built out the rest of the world. How did you find the supporting characters and make sure they could really carry the weight of that film?
Put out a breakdown and started auditions and started talking about, I think Wendell was shooting something in Atlanta when we were in this process, so looked at his work with the director, and he responded to the script, thankfully. And I think Michael came in and auditioned, and I'd known Michael for 30 years. So most of the actors in it were people that came in and auditioned, and it was just creating a world that was not, like the actors don't look like Hollywood glamour actors.
Was there a particular actor or role in any of these projects that you look at and think of as a casting choice you're particularly proud of?
Lea Delaria as Miss Fritter. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
Lea Delaria is this wild jazz musician, crazy Orange is the New Black.
I have an actor whose name is Jacob Tabaya. They are non-binary, and I was given a role that was fantastic to do a search for, and I'm incredibly proud because this person had never done a role before. They were just kind of stepping in, and they did a fantastic job in an actual non-binary character as well, this character of Double Trouble. So I am particularly incredibly proud of that one. It was really a wonderful team. I have a wonderful team who helps us, and we did a lot of searching across the country, and it was particularly very satisfying.
I love my show and have had a lot of fun. And the last few years have been amazing. We found Lyric Ross, who plays Deja, who did a self-tape and was amazing. And then there's just some of the fun ones where we cast Michael Angarano to play younger Nicky on the show, and he, to me, is one of the greatest actors of his generation. He's just can do anything. And then we had to find an older version of him, and Griffin Dunn looked like him and wanted to come and play, and that was fantastic. This season, adding Asante Black, who had been out in When They See Us, I think, for 20 minutes when he was put on my radar. And that was one of those times where I was like, we're done. That's it. Go. He didn't have an agent. I was put in touch with his mom. And I'm like, so I know you don't live in Los Angeles, but we've got this part. And they were fans of the shows. We've had a lot of I've been stupidly lucky with getting some really excited people who. It's nice being on a hit show. I'll just, but getting people where the words are good and that they wanted to come and play has been so much creative fun.
I'm really curious about the creative process with This Is Us, because a lot of times you meet a character and then their story payoff is much later. How much of that do you get up front, and then how do you cast accordingly?
As a matter of fact, I was just joking the other day about I have a face that I call Josh Finds Out Who's in the Redacted Pages. I'm like, oh, a blind singer who looks like the rest of our cast and is gorgeous and 22 and cool. No heads up, that's fine. It's sorry, I got so distracted thinking about that panic attack. What was the question again?
Talking about how fun the creative process is on this is
It's in terms of finding out stuff. Sometimes they give us stuff way in advance. The first episode of this season was almost a repilot. So Dan Fogelman slipped me the script right after we finished season 3, and just to be like, hey, heads up. So we started right away. And some of it, though, I find out sort of later. There have been a couple times where they're like, don't worry, this role is only going to show up one time. And yeah, exactly. I'm like, you're lying. I know you people. They really play things so close to the vest on the show that people, unless you need to know something, they won't always share it. I didn't know how Jack died until we were making that episode. So it's an interesting collaboration because they try so hard to keep things secret that they really do keep things close. But then I've known about a few characters that the rest of the, production team didn't know about, so that we could get started ahead of everybody else. And again, it's just a time where we all kind of have a same vision for the role. They'll give me the broad strokes for something, and we're so in sync 4 seasons in that we're almost always on the same page. And if not, it's very easy to course correct with them, and they're great communicators, and they do know actors really well. So it's it is a blessedly easy process with them to, and sometimes it's finding the name person like Griffin Dunn or Michael Angarano, and sometimes they're totally fine without the name, which in TV you don't always get to do. Sometimes there are the mandates to do it, and we've been lucky enough to often be told just find the right person for it, which is incredibly lucky.
Always refreshing too.
Yeah, well, and it's great for the actors, like because we get to open it up, and sometimes it's the offer and the list, but most of the time, it's just go find us the right person.
How can an actor set themselves up for success when they're coming into your room?
We do a lot of self-recordings, so don't do it on the 405.
Please, don't do it on the
Had a couple of
405,
those.
in a taxi,
You can hear the
at
sirens
a
and it's like-
bar, in a party. What else have I gotten? I got a dorm room with a party going on.
Usually, what I have been doing lately on a lot of films is I ask for self-tapes first, and then I curate the actual director session, just because I feel like if I had to call in everybody who I was being told was director only, it would just take way too long to cast the film. So I think that for me personally, we were just talking about this, an actor doing a self-tape as naturally as possible without being overproduced and it's fine. I'm just trying to get a sense of the way you look and your take on the character. And then when you actually do come into the room, being off book is really important to me because it allows the actor to take the notes from the director and play with whatever the director's trying to get out of the actor. I think there's more freedom in an actor being off book, so being super prepared, reading the script, knowing the material, having asked all the questions that an actor would ask to themselves about where this character is going. You don't have to be overly prepared as an actor. Sometimes people think about it too much. I was just saying to a friend of mine who's an actress, I was like, you can just say the lines and you're pretty darn good. So there's like a balance of being too underprepared and then too overprepared. There's sort of like a sweet spot.
Well, I think setting yourself up for success too in the audition room is being excited about what you want to show to us, because everybody can read lines. My mother can read lines, but she's not an actor. And I think, even with the one-line roles, we did a movie called Shot a few years ago, and it was one of those micro-budget movies. And one of the roles was an EMT person. And the guy that we cast came in and said, "Oh, I'm so excited about this. I Googled what they have to do, and the radio in the back of the truck, and da da da." And so he was like, "Wow, that was your homework on this character with 3 lines." Or in book club, there's a guy moving stuff out of Diane Keaton's house, and he said, "I wonder how this woman feels about moving out of her home." And he had an emotional connection to her character in his 1 line. And so it's one of those things where you have to realize that your story is also a story that puts the fabric of a film together that's exciting. So I think setting yourself up for success like that is knowing who the person you're playing or going to play is, and being excited about showing us something that you feel is authentic to your journey in that 1-line character sometimes.
I would add to that it isn't always about the thing you're in the room for, and you kind of have to hold on to that. So if you're prepared, and you don't get the part, we remember you. And we might not remember you 3 weeks from now, but we generally do. And that's how the relationship is carried throughout. So you might not get this job, but perhaps there's another job for you. So
I had an
be
actor
prepared.
I had an actor come in today who had been in for us about 2 years ago for this really incredible pilot that didn't happen. And he said, he came in for you, it was a great role, and I guess I, did a terrible audition, because obviously I didn't get it and didn't get a call back or anything. It's like, no, the the pilot never went. So you did a good job, you're back in my room.
I think it's important to remember it's yes, the odds are just bad. They just are. So let it go. Just go in there and do the homework before you get in the room. And when you get in the room, just enjoy it. That's your couple minutes to put on a little play today for somebody, and your friends didn't. So just enjoy the process, and you're either going to get it or you're not. And that sense of enjoyment helps, and it carries over. I think the other thing is to understand where it fits into the movie or the show, and how much pressure is really on the role, and then to bring a reality to it. Some of my favorite roles have been the 2, 3, and 4 line parts that then the audience falls in love with, and ends up tweeting about the postman who cried, and oh my God, he was so great. And I cried during his audition. It was fantastic because he came in and was very present and real and did a great job, and he left. And I think to keep that in perspective and to enjoy the process as much as possible makes it fun for us and to get to work with you. If not for this one, then yeah, for the next one.
Yeah, for animation, I think you just said a very key thing is have fun. For me particularly in the projects I work on, I'm much more of a real. I'm not looking necessarily for a cartoon version of you. Please don't send me those. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for your take on the character. I'm looking for a fun version. Yes, in animation you have to kind of broaden your emotions a little bit more, just because we don't get to see your hand movements. But that being said, I do like a real performance. We get, I often do on average about 16 shows a year. So we listen to about 29,000 auditions a year. And I'm not kidding, that's on the low end. We listen to them all. And just like everyone has said, when something stands out, if they do not get that role, we save them. And many people have gotten roles and they're like, I didn't audition. And I am like, nope, I have the 10 auditions you have done for me, and one of them was right for this other show. So, just make a choice in animation, enjoy it, let it go, and trust that it's out there.
A few of you mentioned the self-tape process, and I want to mention that because it's becoming an increasing industry trend. Those of you who do cast off of the self-tape process, what do you wish that more actors understood about that process on your side?
Watch it before you send it to us. Like that, just do that. And we've been using it more and more for the 1 and 2 line parts, and I feel like not making you drive from Glendale to our office to go, here's your water, ma'am, is like, okay, I didn't get to interact with you, which is part of the fun thing for me, but it probably evens out for us both. However, there have been people who've given good auditions, but like it's an up the nose shot like that, or like I can't. Why would you send that? Did you not hit play and check it before you sent it to us? Because I'm not sending that to my producers.
We also don't want people to do voices. Often people think it's Saturday morning cartoons, so we only get the voice, but they do voices. We just want your natural voice and a natural performance for the lines we're giving you.
Yeah, that self-tape thing too is again, watch it before you send it and be proud of what your work is. If your first take isn't your favorite take, do it again. But one of the other things too is don't have a distracting background going on. Like you said, the 405 freeway. But we were watching some self-tapes for Charlie Says, Mary Heron and I, and it was some guy sent something in from, and he'd filmed it in his kitchen, and it was like, okay, I have that coffee pot. It's like, keep it simple so that we're focused on your performance, because when we were doing August Osage County, one of the actors sent something in sitting by a lake, and we heard the crickets, in the background, and it's like, I called her agent and I said, can you tell me why she did that? And she's like, oh, she thought it would be atmospheric. And it's like, okay, that was cool, but it was very distracting, so please have her redo her tape. Yeah,
just assume that anybody watching anything has massive ADD. And if you have provided anything shinier than your face, that's what they're going to pay attention to. So
I'm going to throw in one more animation thing because I know you're all dying to hear it. Please only read your lines. I don't need your version of each character. I don't know about you, but I only need your lines. If you need someone to read with you, have them read with you, cut them out, because normally the other people are clearly also auditioning, and it is also distracting when you hear, your friend who, really thinks this is their moment.
Which is
Go
which
for
is
it.
a little different for me. Like, I need you to have a reader, and I need your reader not to be better than you. But I don't mean better. I mean louder or very present in the acting. But you want to be reading across from somebody and connecting to somebody, and not reading into the camera, but not reading too far. I actually send out directions now, and I send links for how to do it, and it's all in a little space. But again, and just keep it, well lit. Make sure the sound is good. You don't have to overthink it. I get it. You're not a filmmaker. And also, don't send in, this is another good one. If by chance you happen to be in a car in that scene, don't go outside with your friend to your car and film it in the car. It's just like, it's, again, you don't have to do the movie. You just have to be right, right here. I'm looking at your eyes mostly. Like, I'm just looking to see that there's some sort of inner life that you have that is possibly connecting to this character.
I would say make sure that your reader also, as much as shouldn't be distracting and should not be the loudest one, they should not suck. That it is comic when somebody is doing to have whatever the scene is, and then you get the monotone with the emphasis on the wrong. And it's, okay, now we're paying attention to that too. So somebody who can provide. You all are actors. You've all got friends. Help each other out and do these, and just know that it's not your time to shine when you're off camera, but help them providing enough for them to work with it without either distracting attention because you're great or not.
Try to, as much as you can, try to get gender-specific reader. I've had tapes come in that was a guy and guy and some, and a tough, fight scene or something, and one actor got his girlfriend to read that part, and she wasn't giving him anything to work off of, even though she was a good actor herself. So it helps if you can actually, figure out who you might be working opposite in the scene, and helps that performance for you.
And because this is going out to other people, right? I just want to thank all of you for doing your self-tapes. Thank you very much. It's become a reality, and because of budget, but also, I realize that it does take a lot of your time to do it. So I'm very thankful when they come in. I take them all very seriously. I watch all of them. And the truth is that I usually ask for more than I probably need, just because I'm scared that I'm not going to have enough choices. So in a way, I'm getting to see more people than I normally would if I did like a pre-read session or even a director session. There's only so many people you can see, so I'm up quite late at night sometimes.
Matt, you mentioned eyeline. Traditionally, in a self-tape, actors only have one reader. When the camera's that close, how should they be placing a scene where they're talking to different people?
I just do it just to the right or just to the left of I don't know. You're just to the right. I just don't like it straight. Right to the camera. It's just like a little bit to the a little bit that way. But sometimes people do it straight to camera and they're great. Look.
It's just whatever keeps you grounded in the scene.
What's the most surprising choice an actor has made in an audition or on a self-tape with you, and did it hurt or help them?
Man, I have a great story.
We'd love to hear it, Susan.
Can you tell it?
I can. I'm not going to use names because they both become extremely famous. So I was doing this movie a few years ago, and it's such a long story. It's really good. Let me try to focus. So the guy's tape comes in first. It's for the lead of the film, and he's British, and it's an American movie, and he's sitting in what looks like a diner, and there's a girl across from him. We don't see her, and they're speaking he's speaking in an American accent, and she's asking him all these questions like, what do you like on your pizza? And do you want a Coke, or should we have a beer? And what do you think this character really cares? She's just asking him all kinds of random questions, and he's answering them in an American accent. And then all of a sudden, without any, completely seamless, they begin the scene, okay? And everything that these guys say not to do, they were doing, okay? We finished watching it and called the producer. The producer had also gotten it, and we were all, okay, we're done. Okay. So there's an actress who comes to us from another agency in England, and we're like, we don't know we know nothing. And we're like, all right, let's put her on tape. She looks good, whatever. And her tape comes in, and I am not kidding, the first 20 or 30 seconds, I have saved this. I will never get this. At least 30 seconds, she's out in the rain in England smoking a cigarette. That's all she's doing. There's nothing like that in this film. She's just by herself. And I'm like, okay, somebody's on tripping, and they've sent this thing, and I don't know what to do with this. And then it cuts, and she's sitting in front of the camera, and there's a British voice behind her doing the exact same thing. Do you think that he's had sex before? I mean, it was just stuff that had to do with the script, but just not in the scene. And then they launch seamlessly into the scene. They were two of the best auditions I have ever seen. And then we figured out, oh man, they not only do they know each other, but they're boyfriend and girlfriend. So that's, and it went against absolutely everything. That's why I didn't answer that question, because I no longer know what works. No, I'm not, I'm actually not kidding. I'm really wasn't kidding. It's just something comes in and it sparks. And, I had an audition a while ago for the same movie actually, and the girl did it in the car. And I think her mom was reading with her, but and she's become well known. She just had it. So I get what everyone is saying, and I honestly don't have an answer for it because I try not to have self-tapes come in.
But it's also something where they were engaged and something where they were connected and something that wasn't distracting.
But they're
Yeah.
Well, the cigarette.
Except
thing.
for-
the cigarette in the rain was
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Wet hair.
Yeah, yeah. It's just got to be, again, it's the thing of, you know, putting something together, watching it before you send it, and seeing if it's something that you're excited to show us that you feel like is an interesting journey for the character.
Okay, so I'm gonna say when you say what not to do, and in this situation, like I was just looking at a self-tape this evening, and it was terrible. But the actor is so great, and because I know his body of work, I'm slightly obsessed by him. So I'm fine with sending that over because I think you're gonna see how great he is. You can't always help like how it comes in, and I think when two people are right for a role, there's also something to that. So like whatever they're doing on that tape, it's kind of as long as it's
wildly invested.
right. That's what it is, you know. So I guess if you want to do the car thing, go do the car thing. Want to make a mini video of your audition? Make a mini video.
I think this is a very good question to get to know your audience, right? I think one of the key things is we all work in very different ways, and this is the great thing that you're here and meeting us, and you meet other people, but obviously we each need something different, and we're open to different things. So I think that's a key thing, too, to take from this.
I think another thing to generally take away from any of these panels is you can ask 10 casting directors a question, you'll get 15 answers, and they'll swear every one of them is correct. So take it all with a grain of salt, and it's always circumstantial. And yeah, I said the same, like, don't distract me too. We just cast a kid who shot self-tape in the supermarket and must have completely freaked everybody out, but it was great. Okay.
If you're right for the role, you know. So I guess in a way, it doesn't always matter that it has to be perfectly done, you know. But
I did feel like I had to add a note, be like, I know him and he's not crazy. Just, just go with it.
Don't make the whole movie. Like we've had stuff come in, and we were doing this movie about Janis Joplin, and we'd auditioned her, and she wasn't going to get the part, and she sent in literally like a 15-minute movie about Janis Joplin, and we were like, no, like even if you were going to get the part, now you're not. It was bizarre because she was doing the director's job. So that's a problem too.
What advice do you have for actors who don't have many credits but are looking to get more experience?
Well, I'll jump in. I am a fan of, I've seen plenty of like people sending clips from short films and student films. I am also a giant fan of improv. I have not been going as much as I used to, just I've had too much on my plate. But I think it is great for many reasons. One is people go and watch it, so you will have new eyes coming and seeing you. It's a great way to build a community of other like-minded people who are sort of growing. And I also find it to be one of the only places that even vaguely resembles the skill set that comes in an audition, where you just have to be able to say yes and. You go into the room and you took the character this way, and there are times where we'll go, okay, I need you to try something completely different. So let's just do that. And the people who don't have that looseness to them, you feel them put the brakes on a little bit. And that tends to, then there's a hiccup in the audition. The people who are used to just being like, okay, great. Having that looseness to you, I think, is an incredibly powerful tool. So I think that's one of my favorite ways for anybody to get all kinds of different exercise and experience and connections, and it's fun.
I mean, as the New Yorker in the group, what I always say is do anything. Like, start to usher at theaters, start to do internships at theaters, get into plays, do student films. Honestly, Random Acts of Flyness was an opportunity for any living, breathing human being. if you look at the IMDb page, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in this thing, and we were pulling them from anywhere. So that's, it does happen, but you have to put yourself out there too. That's my response.
Susan,
Just working too. I mean, out here you have AFI, you have USC, UCLA. SUNY Purchase has a branch out here now. Loyola Marymount. So do student films.
Susan, we have a follow-up question from the audience. You touched upon Random Acts of Flyness. Treskelen wants to know, Random Acts of Flyness is such a unique show. You mentioned there was so many different opportunities. What were the creators and writers of the show looking for in their casts, and what was that process like for such a show?
The process was total mayhem. Chaotic, chaos comes to mind. Because almost everyone involved in it was nobody knew who Terrence was. So at certain points in this, we had lists of people, but we realized fairly early on that some of this wasn't going to happen. I'm trying to answer your question. The process was just about getting it done and getting it done right. I will say so we had a pilot. We made a pilot, and it was we were paying $150 a day, and Terrence was like, "I really want John Hamm," and I'm like, so I sent it, and you know what? His agent read it and said, "This guy's a mad genius," and I said, "That's what I've been telling you." And John Hamm is in the pilot, and he got $150.
That's incredible. I want to make sure we get some more audience questions in before we run out of time. Tony Haig wants to know, what is the best way to promote ourselves to you, which you will actually notice / read and will not go into the trash? And he follows up with, and no, I don't bake chocolate chip cookies. I will buy them.
Please don't send food. I know, we don't need any more food. We sit and listen or watch, or no more food in my office.
I never get food. I don't know. We take tapes and recordings, and we have a database. It's hard, though, because if you're not known, it's hard for us to go back in there and match that up. But we do take any kind of tapes that people want to send us, random. And we're up in San Francisco, so it's a little harder to do kind of auditions and things. Thank you, guys.
I actually still look at postcards and the occasional, really well-written note. I got one last week that it was somebody who was very passionate about one of the projects that we work on, and she was non-union, and it's a studio where they're never going to let us hire her, but you know what the heck, let's have her do a self-tape for us, just because it'll be fun for her and fun for me to know her when she does get into the union. I'm trying to get hip with the young people and the Twitters and direct messages and stuff. It's a little strange and stalkery to me. But I actually, on Love, Simon the series, we used Instagram to look for actors, which really felt creepy on my end, but we met some great people. So I think social media is starting to be more and more of a way to access. I would probably say it's the younger staff who is more accustomed to that than me. But yeah, if you have that, it's worth trying.
Go ahead.
Well, for me, it's still about doing this for now probably officially a long time, and having a body of a history with actors auditioning and seeing, and growing with them and seeing them in theater and seeing them in movies and television. I don't know if it's really about an actor trying to get to be seen by me. It's more project by project and me trying to cast the net out wider and wider as I'm unable to cast a role. So if a role's easy, if that actor says yes right away, who's on your initial list of 20 or 30 people, great. But as time moves on and you're not getting what you need, it's my job to find you. So your presence has to be online. Everything has to be set up on your end. Like your website needs to be properly, done. Your IMDb page needs to reflect all your credits. Your breakdown services profile needs to not have 4,000 photos on it, but just, have your reel on it. You're everywhere that you would think a casting director would look for you is where we're looking for you. So your social media presence is important. So don't look like, because if I can't, I will sometimes look up your, not even Facebook anymore, right? So like your Instagram or your whatever, your TikTok thing. I don't know anymore, but don't, be professional out there so that, and make sure that you're contactable as well. I'm surfing all the, we were just talking about this, like we're always online, like looking at things, there's so many opportunities for actors to create their own material and to create their own shows and their own web series and and write their own material. And we do watch it, or I do. So, sadly it takes up a lot of time, but, that's how I guess that's how it is.
By the way, whatever your one-line bio should say that you are an actor, because the ones that don't, I had a whole creepy identity theft thing, so I'm very wary now of bots. And if you're not putting yourself out there as an actor, I tend to gloss past it and I'd not know if it's a real profile or not. At this point, and why would you not lead with that and then reach out to me? So,
but reach out to you with an intent for a role, right? Like the right thing.
I get some generic-y sorts of things sent to me, and if I look at the profile and it doesn't say Joe Schmo actor or performer or something where it's obvious that yes, this is what you lead with in your life and this is a thing that you are pursuing. It throws me a little bit, and I just don't know if it's real anymore.
I guess this is the part about we're all different. I'm very project specific, so if I'm not working on something and I get something from somebody, I probably delete it because I just don't have the space to. I need to be focusing on what I'm trying to cast. So so keep trying. I guess.
It's also what you're trying to cast. I get postcards every day. And I look through every one of them, and I read every one of them, and but the ones that come to the top for me are the ones that are specific to what I'm working on at the moment, or if somebody's in the Fringe Festival, and I have friends that are doing Fringe Festival plays, I'll go see that. There's a lot of stuff you can do to get attention, but it is difficult but you don't need to send 6 postcards to my office because there's 6 people that have their name in my office. I don't need, one to me, one to Roya, one to Paul, one to Rachel, one to, and we get that. So one's sufficient, to each address,
We made the joke about it at the beginning, but I actually do want to clarify. I'm not a fan of the bribe, and it is incredibly sweet. But everybody in my office is on a diet anyway, so. But sending the cookies, I'm not gonna remember who sent the cookies just because you sent cookies. It just isn't gonna stick. We get too much input all the time. So yeah, the well-written, the well-crafted note that is project specific or us specific is much more likely to register than a business card stuck on a thing of cookies.
A few of you mentioned social media. I do want to touch upon that real quick. For those of you who didn't, what role does social media play in your process, if any?
The most loathsome role in mine. It's to me, it's like the Kardashians happen to be in my consciousness. I wish they weren't. We were doing a project for Netflix, and they sent us 6.5 weeks into it. One of the producers said, "Well, you haven't seen the influencers," and it's like, what the? You 6.5 weeks into it, you're telling us now? Who do you want us to see? Well, the guy that yodeled in the Walmart. I mean, seriously. So to me, it's I like actors. The social media influencer thing is a pain in my side.
And I think
Apparently not to Netflix, though.
it's sort of our last resort. If IMDb Pro doesn't have you, we'll go to social media to try to find you. That happens.
I find that producers sometimes get excited about it, like how many Instagram followers you have or whatever, especially in the indie space. But to this point, I'm casting a film right now that's shooting in Wyoming, we think. And the two leads right now are, one's on a reality television show and the other one has 1.3 million followers. She's a beauty blogger. But I didn't know that at the time that I was auditioning them. So, and I probably should have, but I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because they were the best actors that auditioned for the part. So it just was another aspect of them. And actually, the beauty blogger wore too much makeup to the audition, and I told her agent she'd probably get more work if she stopped wearing so much makeup to the audition. So, and she's amazing. But so it was just, so it is part of I guess it depends who your producers are and like what, and how they feel like they can connect with an audience down the road. You know, the conversation does happen, but I don't like it.
It's a no for me, except for we did a movie that was all deaf people, and we used every social media platform that existed to find the cast. So there are times when it really, really is helpful, and that's a very specific case in point. So, but I don't care how many followers you have.
Early on, when we were doing August Osage County, Tavi Gevinson was a blogger, and she was 14 or 15 or something, and she sent in a tape, you know, even though she wasn't an actor, and it was okay, you know, and then she sent in another one, and it was better, and then she came in and read for the, you know, the role that we didn't cast her in it, but she actually became obviously a really good actor, so. Because that's, you know, she did that as opposed to just being famous for being famous. You know?
Yeah, on Nosferatu, the show's creator said, hey, there's this girl who's my prototype. Just watch it just so you see what energy that we're looking for. And Tiffany was like, oh, I think I've seen her before. And then she and I went back to the office and watched. And we were obsessed. And we're like, well, let's just see. Let's see, like, she's never acted. Let's just see what happens. And it was a bit of an uphill climb. Like, she hadn't been in front of a camera before except doing that. But she got the part. She's fantastic. Was a series regular and then went on to do a movie. And so it can happen anywhere. And she was just making silly YouTube videos that were entertaining and like witty and smart. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm pretty. But like, it was very quick. You could see her brain working, and she had an opinion about something, and there was stuff going on in her head, and it was exciting for us. Would I say that is normally how the process works? No. Am I still completely obsessed with her and adore her? Yes. So it can play in. Yeah, in terms of followers, yeah, really don't care. I hate when we get the phone call from the studio or the network that gratefully is fairly rare, mostly because I think they know my head's going to blow up when they say it. But when they're like, did you know this person has this many followers? No.
And we all get it. I mean, there's so much content out there now that everybody's trying to get above the noise and, you know, get a built-in audience, but it doesn't mean that those people are right. You know, like you said earlier, the perfect fit for the role. It doesn't mean they are just because they have 1 million followers.
And it's also a weird thing because like we did cast Instagram quote unquote actor for Miss Stevens, and he was because he was also like a beauty blogger as well, and the character was gay, and there was something about him in his beauty blogging that resonated with the director, and I saw what she was talking about, and he did a very good job on the film, but I always thought like, hey, what if an actor was gonna tackle this role too, you know, and just, I didn't even have a chance to try it, you know, like we were so determined to, and so now you're casting a personality to be the personality of what's written. It's weird, you know, because you're not even giving the actor the chance to like breathe life into something. You're saying, that's what I want. I want that. Okay, so that person gets to set, and that's what they're doing, and that's all they're doing. So is that really a good thing? Like, are you finding something special in that moment with that actor that could make the character even more deep, have more depth to it? I don't know. Probably not.
Question from Bernardo. When called into a producer session, do you find that the actors that get cast are the ones that are completely off book, or does it matter that they're holding their sides?
Well, to me, I mean, if you're off book, it's great because then you're freer. But if your process is holding the sides so that you don't get lost and have a reference point, whatever works for the actor, for me, is what I'm looking for.
We always tell people, even when they're off book, to hold their script so that the producers are reminded that it's an audition and not you're not in the movie yet. So, just as a whatever, that's what
I think actors also have to prioritize, especially during pilot season, look at the material that you're auditioning for, and if something is harder and they want you right away, take the time to talk to your rep and see if you can get more time before you, do you really have to audition tomorrow because it's 7 pages of material? Does that really have to happen? Can I get an extra day so that you can also maybe do the other audition that you have that day and which is only 2 pages and be off book and be, so I think actors have to take control of these decisions as well, but yes, being off book for me means that freedom to work with myself or the director.
To me, if you are super familiar with it but hanging on to it, partly for what Susan said, I think it's a helpful reminder, and it's great because if you have that brain fart moment, then it's there. And if I want you to have it totally memorized that early in the process, I feel like I should pay you. I should just hire you. I would rather that you were focused on the character. And I'm very much a person about the music and the rhythm. And if the writing is even half decent, they've given some thought to that. And I would rather that you stay pretty true to their words and not have to go looking for it up there because you're not holding your sides.
To wrap things up, because we are unfortunately out of time, will everyone please share one thing that you want the actors to walk away with tonight knowing?
We've said so much.
I think everyone has to remember that we're on your side, that we're part of this. I mean, we're just not against you, and I think that there are some people who think that we really hold the keys to the kingdom, and we don't. We're part of the process, and I think from what I've heard tonight, I think we all like actors. And that's a real important thing to remember, that what you do is really scary to me. I would never, ever, ever even think of doing it. So I have nothing but, I admire all of you. It's really hard what you do. So that's my answer.
Yeah, we're all fans up at Pixar, and I guess my only thing with us doing any kind of tape send in, just using your natural voice and a natural performance rather than Saturday morning cartoon.
For me, I look for actors who want to be in the project, and I know it sounds really strange, like you would think that everybody who's coming into audition wants to be in the film, but they don't. And so, really don't come into the room thinking, I'm not going to get it, this isn't for me. If you're having negative thoughts, it's going to affect your audition. I really do, even if it's one line, I want you to want that one line, because it's the only way that I can tell that you're into it, and I want to cast people who want to be on set, and it's important to me to create a good vibe and to have my director call me the next day and go, oh my God, that actor was so amazing. Because even if it is one line, it's 8 hours. You're going to be on set for a long time. You're going to be able to create. You're going to be able to interact. You're going to be able to explore. Sometimes that one line becomes 4 days, or 5 days. So I'm looking for people who just come in with a really positive attitude, because it's hard out there.
I think, to walk away from tonight's thing, I mean, we all chose to be in this business somewhere along the line. And I think as actors especially, you chose to do this. It's not an easy process, and there's no, clear-cut journey for an actor. And so I feel like, it's a privilege that we all get to continue working in this business. And it's like juggling almost. I mean, even for casting directors, we don't know what the next thing is, and we don't know right now where this world is going, because there's so many different platforms and so many different ways of telling stories, which is what we all were interested in doing in the first place. So I think just, realizing that we all chose this, as opposed to somebody put a gun to your head and said, you have to go into the acting business, because nobody did, is something that we all are, we all chose this. And so we're all a part of this crazy group of people that are insane.
Well, as a side note, I'm a big fan of meditation. I'll just put that out there. I think what I really look for is somebody. It is show business, and I'm looking for somebody who takes the business part of it seriously and respects our time and the fact that if you got an audition or we're watching your self-tape, that you've put the work into it to make it worth our time, but it's entertaining and it should be fun. I still remember I used to work with a line producer. One of the common cliches is, we're just selling soap flakes here. And he would say, yes, but we're selling them artfully. And I always, that to me is such a great encapsulation of what we do. It is a business, and it should be treated like a business, but it should be fun. So enjoy the process, because otherwise go get a practical job, which none of you are going to do because you're here on a weeknight listening to our garbage. So thank you.
I don't have too much more to add. The definitely on your side thing, I think we can all say that's absolutely true. We appreciate all the effort, the time, the hours that you put into reading these sides, to making these decisions. I think we're all very grateful for them. For me specifically, I think I'm looking, it needs to feel organic, and I think that's the biggest thing for all of us. When we hear you read these lines that our writers have written, we want it to feel real. And then for me specifically, I do a lot of comedy, so I'm looking for your comedy. I'm looking for you to find that little gem in there. And I think that across the board, any comedy, animation, on camera, anything, we're looking for you guys to find that. We want you to find something we didn't. So do that.
Thank you all so much for your time and your insights. Congratulations on your nominations, and best of luck tomorrow night.